got that into a partnership with Gary Vee.
How does one go about getting a partnership with Gary Vee?
This is like so wild. So I started a kitchen design company. We would do really high-end homes. And so I did that for 8 years. Me and my mate started a bow tie business. And then all of those things together built me into what now is Who is Elijah. Say yes to anything and see what happens. Gary Vee, hey, can you fly over tomorrow? Yeah, I'll be there.
Are we allowed to share like a number of units sold just so people can understand?
Produce about 20,000 bottles a week.
Oh shit, okay.
Yeah. And
what does it mean to work with your wife on this and and raising kids at the same time? Like what does that mean for you?
I just don't know what we would do if we didn't have the business. Found a fragrance oil in Coachella when we first started dating 7 years ago. Let's just make a fragrance, just like that. She's creative and I like building blocks. Like we both want to build this great life. We both want to go on this crazy adventure. We both want to bring our kids along for the ride. When it all comes said and done at the end of it, we would have done it together. And I think that's really cool.
Give me an example of an existing current challenge you're facing in the business, and then how are you going about problem solving that?
I think right now...
Welcome to Chew the Fat. I'm absolutely obsessed with high performance and business. So I sit down with incredible guests and we talk about what it takes to be at the top. This is part of my mission to raise $1 million for children's cancer by running a cookbook called Eat with Purpose. I've got one ask for you. Share the content. The bigger the audience, the bigger the impact. Let's get stuck in. Part of the mission and the reason why I cook for every guest on Chew the Fat is to tie into the mission of raising $1 million for children's cancer.
Love that.
For the cookbook Eat with Purpose. Today we had those beef skewers, right? And we both realized it's 9 a.m. And that's a crime. So so you said bakey eggs. So I made a little brekkie tacos here.
Love that.
And let's get stuck in,
Let's
man.
do it.
I have a question for you. It's the last day on earth and you have a single meal. What are you eating?
I would say I'm gonna eat a chicken burger.
Yeah.
Yeah, from my like a flame, like it's called flame cold chicken burgers.
Yes.
And it's like this grilled chicken burger, chili sauce, or sweet chili sauce, mayo. It's just like a proper tradies chicken burger.
Yeah, sick. Love that. All right, mate. We'll finish up here and then we'll get stuck into the interview.
Easy.
Adam Bouris, co-founder and CEO of Who is Elijah. Welcome to Chew the Fat.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Mate, what I'd love to know is like, bring me to those early moments in your childhood.
Yep.
The parts that shaped you to make you the person you are today.
Yeah. So when I go back, my mum played like a really big part in my, growing up as a boy and into a man. My mum and dad split up when I was little. I had a stepdad, Ross. He's like awesome guy. My dad was always around as well. So I had these some good figures around me. I think when I look back on how I sort of went from, where I learned my work ethic, where I learned how to think and how to do things, I really take it back to like my early sporting days from when I was like 12, 13, playing soccer and playing rugby league. So I was very competitive, like don't even try to beat me in the warm up. I'm going to crush you in the warm up. And that's just how I had my mentality. And I think largely when I reflected on that later, it's because I knew I wasn't the most talented, but I knew I could outwork anybody. So from young, my mum was always there as this like nurturing, figure in my life that I needed. And I just had these football coaches and these football teams that would just push me or allow me to push myself to these limits. And I talk about it with some of my mates from those teams still and how we're going to bring our kids into that type of mental framework and how important those competitive years were for me. I was in one of those teams, we just never lost. We had players that went on to play first grade and, all sorts of different sporting arenas. We were that team that just would be undefeated and we didn't care about it. And we would beat teams 90-0 and we would put our foot on the throat. And our coaches taught us to do that, but they also taught us to be like shake hands, be respectful. And after the game, get over it, it's done now. So I had a lot of that growing up, which I think shaped me a lot in those like teenage years. And a lot of that applies in work and in business, just this like ruthless mentality to like not give up, to turn up when it's hard, to do the hard things when it's raining, when it's wet, when it's cold out in the fields. But yeah, I do think that had a big part in my growing up.
And how do you balance that, right? So that at a core is a critically important piece. But the reality is there's a small percentage of the population that's like that. Yeah. And even as I hear you talk about that, I'm like, firstly, you wouldn't have wanted me in your sporting team. Because that 90-0 would have been more like nil and crushed. Yeah. But secondly, like I don't think I had that deeply ingrained competitiveness. Now, having that is incredibly powerful, but there can be really like a dichotomy between that and the everyday person, the person we bring into the business. So like, how do you almost have to, if you do, like, put the tiger in the cage sometimes? Yeah.
I think business teaches you to put the tiger in the cage because it's a long game. Over, in a sporting game, it's a 90-minute, go for war, it's life or death. And I do look at business like that as well. We're obviously early days in. So, I don't have that experience yet of, reflection 10 years, 15 years in where it's like, you need to chill the fuck out, man. But we're in the thick of it, right? So I'm just competing. But when I bring people in, I also have this like, I think, which was what my mom taught me. She taught me to always listen to my heart when I was young, which is like this, soft, way to think about things. But I have this very good understanding of who they are and what they can and can't do. And I'm not pushing everyone to be me. I know that a lot of the people in my team they're not competitive like me, but I'm running like an operation where we need to succeed, and there's values along the way that are going to happen. And I think with my team, it's managing their expectations of who they are as people. And some of my team, I see them differently to how they see themselves. Yes, they don't quite see the person I see in them. I see this person that can succeed, and I see the positives in people, and sometimes they can't see it themselves. So I really frame a lot of my conversations with some of my key guys. They're like, why do you believe in me so much? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you can't see what I can see. Yes. And I'll try to really make sure when there is a moment that happens that when it does come to light that they are more of this person, or they've got an inclining. Oh, that's what Adam said. I really lean in that moment and make it impactful for them. That's huge. So that they can connect to it and they can sort of see, well, maybe Adam's right. Maybe I am a little bit better than I think I am.
It's super interesting as you talk about that, because that to me is the perfect definition of a coach. Yeah. Right? It's like someone who's willing to come and play, but then you see the talent and can help grow and nurture. And the reality from a business perspective is you help that and see that in people. You have a far longevity in those people, in those individuals.
Yeah. And I think like finding and then you can also quickly see people who aren't team players, and you can, stop wasting everyone's time.
Yeah, right. That's super, super interesting. Just give us 1 second. You're listening to the podcast, and I'm here to tell you to follow it. Come on, let's get stuck back in. He's an interesting dude, eh?
And move on from that person and give them critical feedback as to why. But in a positive note for the people that I see longevity in, like it's a patience thing, and it's as a coach, in a sporting team or a leader in a business, like it's not just all about winning. It's about building up the people that are going to help you win. And you want to get there with the people that you've built and that you've believed in, and then you've changed that focus that they now believe in themselves and they can run things. And I think some of my guys, which have come from not, e-commerce backgrounds, or they've come from other walks of life. I think my greatest success is that if one day they leave and they go and get like a head of operations job as an e-commerce brand, that they were never that person before, and they can confidently leave my, maybe I protect them a little bit, that they could leave, go get these awesome jobs because of who they became along the way.
Yes.
So that's like, I do enjoy that coaching aspect of it. Yeah.
I love that. It's so interesting when you talk about that. There's something that's been boiling in my brain at the moment. There's like, it's almost like a gripe, and it's like the difference between the mentality that's required, or maybe required, I don't know, as a small business, which is if you want something done right, you do it yourself. Which is complete horseshit. And the other version, which is like, hey, if we want to win, we need to be a team, and then me as the leader, I have to play the role of the coach, and the way we win is ultimately me investing time and energy and into people. And that's how you get scale out of business. Like there's only a very few examples. Let's say Instagram, when you had 8 people and you sold for $1 billion, great. but there's not I don't think there's any of those in Australia. Now, we were chatting before about the prior to the Who is Elijah. And I'm really interested in that because a lot of people listening are either at that step of taking the leap to start a business. They're in a venture and they're looking for assistance, or they're in that growth phase. And I think there's so much learnings that we can get through every step in the entrepreneurial journey, which is starting something, learning from it, and then shifting into the next. Bring me to what were those early stage businesses you did? Yeah, so I started out as an apprentice cabinet maker. Nice. Like straight out of school, I left school year 11, didn't even go the whole way. And started out as a cabinet maker, did that, my apprenticeship, and left, quit, hated it, never wanted to do it again. Traveled with my mates, sold everything we had, 6 months, around the world, let's go. Perfect. Came back and I was labouring on a building site at like 23, 22. And I obviously still had my apprenticeship and everything, so people started to get wind that I was back and that I could help them with some little small cabinetry jobs and things like that. So my mum actually just forced me in. She's like, you're going to go and start a business, and people keep calling you. People keep wanting you to do work for them. You're obviously good at it, so go and start. So I started a kitchen design company, and we would do really high-end homes, like $200,000 kitchens, $1 million house fit outs. Yes. And so I did that for 8 years. 2013 I started that. During the 8 years, this is where I started to get the shiny light syndrome that everyone talks about. But I do believe this built me to who I was. Yeah. So that was 2013. 2015, like Tai Lopez was the guy, right? We've all the YouTube video in front of the Lambo Ferrari. Yeah, nice one, Tai Lopez was the guy. He had this 67 steps, I think it was called, about like awareness and who you are as a person. I leaned into that, paid the $68 for the course, and jumped on a plane, went over to LA and went to like one of those meetings, one of those conferences. Yes. It was a very small, intimate group. And came out, and I think, what does they say? If you don't earn money while you sleep, you're going to work the rest of your life. And it's such a cliche bullshit thing. It's true, but it's like, it's a bit of a cliche. So I'm like, I need to start a business where I can earn money while I sleep. Yeah. So that's the metric. Yeah. So I'm going to go to sleep and it's going to make money while I go to sleep. And so me and my mate started a bow tie business, an e-com brand selling bow ties. Can I pause this for one moment? I would love to know, just for the audience, what was the scale we got to with the kitchen company? Yeah. And, if you're happy to share like revenue. Yeah. So we got to like 3 million a year in sales. Awesome. Which was about 100 kitchens a year. Fantastic. Okay. And so the kitchens was still going while I started the bow tie business. Beautiful. So we're doing both. Yeah. Very opposite. So me and my mate were doing that. Got that into a partnership with Gary Vee. They just launched Venus Sports. So you've beautifully said the word Gary Vee, and I'm deeply curious. How does one go about getting a partnership with Gary Vee? This is like so wild. Cool. I'm ready. He posted on his short story when he had about 4 million followers. Yes. Hey, I'm looking for a men's accessory company. Reach out if you are one. I'm like, I'm one of those. So I'll do that. And we were just doing this out of our garage. We'd maybe like had 10 sales at the time. And he wrote back and he's like, hey man, tell me what you got. So I'm like, I'm seeing my mate, oh my God, fuck, Gary Vee's wrote back to me. And I was like a fan. So I'm like, oh my God. It's happening. So went back and forth with Tyler, his assistant, sent him some samples, and the name was Nice Ties Finished Last.
So like, and the messaging was like, it was like, nice guys don't finish last, but boring nice guys do.
Yes.
Which was so shit when I think about it. And they liked it.
Yeah.
NTFL was the acronym of it.
Yeah.
So like, anyway, got that, got on a plane, went over there, gave them samples, said all good to go. So we started sending them product to give to the athletes. And the athletes were posting for us, but nothing was happening. So it was like 18 months, nothing really happening. And I had no idea about websites, marketing, ads. Like I was a cabinet maker, right? So social media was like just kicking off really. So everything was new. And so I realized that there was no mechanism to be able to purchase from a piece of content. That's why no one was buying my product, not because I had a shit website, not because I had no advertising. It was because someone couldn't purchase from the content.
Yes.
So my brother and I decided, let's build an app that would allow people to purchase product from a piece of content. And everyone listening said, yeah, Instagram can do that now. you know? But they didn't have it then. And what we built was an app where you could turn a piece of content into a website, give it a URL, use the URL, short story, email, text, wherever, and you could really like transact inside a piece of content.
Cool.
Then we realized, well, we want to add multiple brands to be able to do this inside one piece of content without leaving the content or going to other websites. The only way you can do that now is through marketplaces, but not from a piece of content. So we built it. And we got about 200 users, Q Clothing, 200 brands, Q Clothing, about 10,000 users. Tried to launch it properly with funding and investment, and we just failed.
How much funding and investment? Or did you end up raising any funding?
We used money that I had from the kitchen business, which was all still going. So the kitchen's still going at this time, Tai's still going, and the app is going. Right? And a side note on this, I read Elon's book.
Great
his
book.
first one.
And
it's like he did all these things.
And
I'm like, he did rockets and cars and all these things. I'm like, I can do a bow tie business and a kitchen business and build an app. Can't be that hard. And that was literally what my mentality was at the time. He can do it, I can do it.
Elon who? Come on.
That's right. So we thought we needed about 2 million in funding to get it going because it was it was a transaction-based revenue. And we met with all of the investment funds, and we didn't have the Instagram-like traction at the time. So I think going into those tech startup fundings, you need to have traction or credibility as a founder, especially if you're raising pre-revenue. Right.
So at that time, it was really focused on user growth and like a product market fit to establish that.
Correct.
And then therefore, when you're going to raise, it's like, hey, we'll expand it to X, and then we'll turn on the money taps.
That's right.
Got it.
Yeah. So we went into these meetings as a cabinet maker. Right. And my brother was a builder, and they just looked at us like, who are these guys? And maybe that was my perception of what they thought about us. Maybe that wasn't what they thought about us. But at the time, people were raising money like X executive at Shopify. Or like X executive at Facebook, X Google. These guys walk up. They don't even need a pitch deck. Just your name on it, and they'll invest in you.
What did you learn from that? Like, what did you learn from the process of being unsuccessful in that capital raise stage?
That it's like, it's very hard to raise capital, but I put it down to, if you don't have credibility as a founder, you need traction. You need demand for the product. You need to prove that it solves a problem. And this is probably what the bigger picture was. It didn't actually solve a problem that was needed at the time. We just, you push hard down what you think people should be doing versus looking at what they're actually doing, right? We assumed people would want to do that. The brands would want to do it. The influencers want to do it. It also became a three-sided marketplace. We needed retailers, influencers, and customers. They're like impossible to create.
At this point in time, just for everybody, again, only if you're comfortable, how much money have you spent of your money to get you at that table to then find out how I can't raise?
About 350,000.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we were in it.
Yeah.
And again, we didn't have money.
No.
we were like kids. We were like, I owned a decent kitchen company. It was making money. For sure. little bit of money from friends and family. Didn't take too much from them because, you know, I guess it was a hope for us that this would work. Let's build the next $1 billion thing. This is going to work. Continually along the way, people were telling us it was great. Even the brands, the Iconic, the chief of marketing, even the guys at Afterpay, they're like, guys, this is incredible. But you need this before we do it. But you need this. And you just keep going down this development rabbit hole. So that happened.
So if I may, I think that's a really important note for the audience, right? This is one of the challenges when it comes to whether you be in a business and you're looking for feedback, or you're about to start a business and getting feedback from people. Where you get that feedback from is so important, so critical. And let's pretend that feedback is from a customer, the Iconic. There is no feedback more powerful than the feedback of someone's wallet. Yeah. If they're paying you, that is the feedback. If they're saying the words, this is amazing, but they're not paying you, there's something is at a crossroads. Yeah. But what's really good there is, like, as I hear that, like 350 grand is a shitload of money, and you're going all in. But what you did really correctly, which I'm super passionate about this, is you went, you launched, you got to a point, you essentially got the feedback from the market through not raising. I'm seeing a lot of people do the reverse, where they're trying to build, what like in your mind was like, this is the solution, it's going to work. They get a pre-seed round. They're getting investment, they're spending cash prior to even getting the first users. I've seen people that are 3 years in, they haven't launched to the market, and because they're fixated on, like, it has to be perfect. At least you got that feedback super quickly, and therefore can pivot quickly. Like
we again, not coming from an investment background or financial background or startup background, it's like, well, how can we ask someone for money if we don't can't show them anything? And I think, again, a lot of these, you see it all the time, these pre-revenue raises and these awesome pitch decks that people create, and then like the investor doesn't give a shit about that stuff. Just like, tell me, does it work? Does it solve a problem? Is it scalable? How big's the market? Okay, good. Are you guys going to stick it out? We knew we would stick it out. We had that part ticked.
The tiger was out of the cage at that time.
We were ready. So we got to a point where we're like, we're not going to tip in more money to this because we were out of money, and the kitchen business was happening. The bow ties had sort of been parked because this was taking most of the time. And we just sort of sat down, my brother and I had a conversation and just said, let's just call a spade a spade. And it was a tough decision. We hugged it out. I went and did I sold my kitchen company.
Can I? So sorry, I keep interjecting here,
it's
but
okay.
I'm jamming. I'm enjoying. I think what's really important for the audience is, like, when they hear that, we're like, we hugged it out, but it's like, but the reality is, like, in that moment, like, what's the real feeling? Like, take me to that, like, that true moment. Like, are we crushed, or we're like, no, it'll work out? Like, what are you feeling?
Look,
really?
I think my brother was more crushed than I was. Because I had sort of other plans on the table. He did too. But we both wanted this to work. Like, we both got so not caught in it. We were so in it.
100%.
And we were so ready for it to just kick off. We just needed this, someone of substance to, like, take us on and say, guys, this is all these people have said yes. Like, let's just give these guys a shot. And we never got the shot. But my brother, I think and we just went away together, but my brother, I think he was, like, hurt for a while. He felt more of the failure than I did, because he was the tech guy building it, and he built some awesome stuff, like really good stuff. And I think we just, like, it was a shit time for us. But as brothers, we sort of, like, we always had each other's back in the long run.
Love that.
And we've helped each other out along the way always. And I think in the moment, like, what we thought was essentially life or death, right? It's not all over, unless even we'd lost 350 grand. Like, we didn't die, we still had each other. We still had vision. We still had drive. We still had, eagerness to start something and go. And we still had a vision to be something more than we are now. And I think over a few months for him, that sort of clicked, and, he then, you know, went on to develop some property and stuff like that. So
awesome.
Yeah, but it was a shit time, to be fair.
What were the key? So apart from the raising piece, apart from the the product market fit, if we will, with the wallets, like what were the key learnings that you got from those 3 different ventures? I think, you know, the idea around failure, air quotes, is like, you know, not even remotely true, because like that is the best kind of MBA is to find out, you know, there's a concept around survivorship bias where, you know, we look at the winners. So the planes were coming back from World War II and they would see the bullet holes in the planes and they would go, okay, we're going to reinforce these places where the bullet holes came.
Yeah.
But actually, we should be looking at the planes that crashed because that's where the learnings come from. So you paid $350,000 and you got the world's best MBA.
Yeah.
Share with the audience, like, what did you learn?
Yeah, I learned that, like, I think on an emotional level, you know, the amount of resilience that you need to have. And I don't know if everyone understands how much you need to have. Because if you, even my total now 12 years in business, 14 years in business now from 22, sorry. Like, if someone had told me, if I knew now in the beginning, you just wouldn't do it. Like if I told you the pain, if I told you the suffering, if I told you the challenges, yes, there's all these great moments. They're all over Instagram and they're great. But they're only good because of the challenges you got through. You only savor them because of how hard it was to get them. But like going through the 3 businesses, the first one being Inspired Kitchens, we sold it. You know, we didn't make big money from it, but we made something of it. Yeah, I think that taught me in that moment that there is something of value to be made, and it's not that, like, it's not wildly difficult to do. It is achievable. Like, I did start as a cabinet maker who was a tradie footy player who, you know, ate bacon egg rolls and chicken burgers, you know, like just a normal dude, you know. And we sold a business. Like, that wasn't a thing in where I was from. So I knew that was very like, okay, well, I can do this at this level. The bow ties was say yes to anything and see what happens. Like, just say yes. Gary Vee, hey, can you fly over tomorrow? Yeah, I'll be there. Cool. You know, I stood in his office. I met him. You know, I made a 1-of-1 bow tie for this NFL kid that got picked in the draft.
That's so cool.
He wore it on the draft. You know, nothing comes from it, but I just said yes to do it. And I was in those environments. So I think NTFL told me just to say yes and see what happens.
That's cool.
And the app was called Snatch It. That was really about resilience and just getting told no, but not giving up. And yes, we failed in the end, but the progress along the way was significant. And we learned a lot, both as my brother and I as founders, which you had as well. But just as this, like, you know, don't give up. And if it's not actual death at the end of it, like, you know, just keep going. So that taught me there, just like, a no is just you're talking to the wrong person. Just keep going. And then all of those things together built me into what now is Who is Elijah.
What a perfect segue.
Yeah.
What a beautiful segue. Take me there.
Yeah.
Like, firstly, I guess for the audience, like, what is Who is Elijah?
Yeah.
And then, you know, the in a snapshot, the journey to get you there. But I'm really focused today on like the lessons to be learnt.
Yeah.
And because I know you've shared that, you know, the journey piece. But give us in a nutshell.
Yeah, cool. So Who is Elijah? My wife Raquel, she founded it in 2018. An Australian independently owned fragrance house. The slogan is we make memories, not perfume. We actually make perfume. So perfume brand started in our garage. Raquel, just again, is the type of person, she's just not going to take no for an answer. Started it with no experience. Started she was an EA to a C-suite of guys.
So cool.
Found fragrance oil in Coachella when we first started dating 7 years ago. Literally on that trip that we first started dating.
That's cool.
Found the oil, tracked it down, brought it back to Australia. It came from India. Started wearing it. People coming up to her saying, you know, what are you wearing? What fragrance are you wearing? Just decided, let's just make a fragrance just like that. So started in the garage, went to a shed, went to this, just that story, I was, as I said previously, doing those other things at the time while it was starting, and it started to kick off about 2 years in. 2 years in, we had about 250 retailers selling the product, and we were pretty much still in our garage. Guys like Adore Beauty and David Jones, all those big guys were selling the product. And I came in at that point from my past experience and really just jumped in and took the operational control of the business. And Raquel is a creative person. She's very good at detail, as she was as an EA, but naturally she's just creative product genius.
Love that.
She wants to just go and build products and make things that people love. And I love, like you, just building the nuts and bolts of it and like building the building blocks one at a time and the people one at a time. So Who's Elijah now today? We're 6 years in.
Yep.
We probably the fastest growing perfume brand in Australia.
Epic.
One of the fastest growing, definitely one of the fastest growing perfume brands in Australia. But e-com wise, we've grown about 150% year on year.
Nice.
Very quickly.
For the 6 years.
For the last 3 years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're launching globally into Boots UK. We're launching into Middle East. We're launching into Europe. We've now got a team of about 40 people.
Yeah.
We manufacture the product in our warehouse in Tarrant Point. We put together the bottle, the packaging, the lid, all of it, and we send it around the world. And people love it.
I love that. Nice.
Yeah.
I like beautifully wrapped up there. It's very good. Are we allowed to share like a bit, just to give people context around the scale, number of units sold, those kind of things, just so people can understand. So as we dive into the lessons, they're like, oof, Adam knows his shit.
Yeah. So right now we produce about 20,000 bottles a week.
Whoa.
Out of our factory.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it initially, to give more context, the first order of bottles was like 13 bottles. Fuck. Yeah. So now it's like 100,000 a week, 20,000 a week. So 100,000 a month.
Incredible.
Yeah. About
that. About 80,000, but who's counting?
Yeah. It goes up and down, but it's about that.
Amazing. That is significant.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
So what is what's required from like both a logistical point of view and an e-com point of view to work at that level? Because that's pretty significant.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot. And you're producing it in-house.
Yeah.
Talk me through it.
It's a mix between retail and direct to consumer.
Yep.
So the mix does change. Sometimes it's 70% retail. So those bulk orders, significant more units required.
Of course.
Obviously online, a lot more less units. Logistically, running a perfume business, it's like a logistics business that sells perfume.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Dangerous goods is a massive challenge. To move fragrance is classified dangerous goods because of the ethanol content in it. So moving it around the world is a challenge.
Share with me, what does challenge mean for the audience? Because e-com is such an interesting thing. Is like it's so hot right now, and people want to think about what's the product I'm going to get into.
Yeah.
Like, and that might be the first time someone's ever heard of dangerous goods. What does that actually look like, nuts and bolts, day to day, to do that?
So day to day, we can't send like a direct to consumer online order from here in Australia to New Zealand to a New Zealand customer.
Yes.
Because the shipping rates are through the roof.
Wow. Okay.
Because nobody wants to put a dangerous goods onto any of their stuff, in their cars, in their planes. They just don't want to do it. So it's very expensive. It can be done, and it is done. It's just very expensive. So, and it takes time, and little mistakes can happen along the way. It's not like Australia Post comes and picks it up and runs away, and that does happen. But the documentation required to send orders to make sure that it's ticked off correctly, that it's classified a certain way, is significant. So the day-to-day challenge is, how do you grow globally? We need to have 3PLs in every country.
What's a 3PL, sorry?
Third-party logistics provider.
Awesome, okay.
So that means we send bulk to New Zealand.
Yes.
And that 3PL is connected into our Shopify. Orders go through, and they send it to us.
Got it. Yeah.
They send it out to the customer. So we do that in every country that we're in. So the US, UK, about to be Germany, about to be the Middle East, New Zealand. Whereas a normal, if you're selling a T-shirt, you can just set up a DHL e-commerce account and you could set your marketing in Facebook to anywhere in the world.
Yes.
And you can test traction anywhere and you can send it there. We can't do that.
That's cool. I think it's a really interesting takeaway, right? Because when people are in that fresh face, hey, what's the product I'm going to do? Oh, I'm passionate about this. It's like the underlying just challenges that are baked into that product. Yeah. You have to think about.
Yeah. People don't go looking.
No. Like, I mean, that's the first time I've heard of that. I'm like, what are you talking about? Just send the perfume.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned a few countries there. Like, what's your process in going, like, this is the market we're going to enter, and then, like, how much time, energy, and effort do you put in going, okay, we're now going to go?
Yeah, and I think, like, we made every mistake in Australia you can make. Like, let's just lay that out first. So, like, I can say it from now what to do.
Yes,
but from what we were doing, maybe I'll give 2 references, but like what we were doing here in Australia was just say yes to every single retailer. I don't care if you sell at Wagga Wagga on the highway versus David Jones Luxe or Sephora Luxury, right? Or any of those luxury stores. Everyone was selling the product, which means we lost control of the supply of the product, which is a big problem. So at the time, yes, revenue, yes. And need all these systems to manage that, implement Salesforce, implement all these expensive tools, because how do you see what's going on? That's what we were doing in the beginning here in Australia. When we're now launching into the UK, we've built a brand now, and we have a product market fit, and we have scale, somewhat of scale anyway. We want the best people to come to us. We're not going to say yes to everyone. So we're going to go and identify 30 key accounts that we want to sell the product. And then we're going to really look at these people as brand partners, as opposed to revenue partners or revenue drivers. They will drive revenue, But so now when we go into a new country, to reference back, find the key retailers that the brand positions perfectly with, make it a win-win for them, and then launch with those retailers, lots of content around us now being there, and then bring the online marketing tools underneath that.
Two questions. One, just a quick interesting one. Is there like a bit of an aura that comes to those countries where it's just like, this is made and produced in Australia?
Look, not really.
No? Okay.
Like, I think the hype of that's gone.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's made and produced in country is better.
Yeah.
So like we will, when we move to these countries, especially in the UK, we're going to still make it as Who Was Elijah, but in the UK.
Cool. Okay.
Right? So it will be made in the UK.
Nice.
By UK staff, and it's not made in China in factories like that. Our raw material, our bottles and our lids, yes, they come from China. The liquid itself, the actual fragrance, is made in Australia, and it always will be.
Yes.
But I think going into these new countries, it's not a deal breaker if it's not. But I do think that people these days, especially when you're talking luxury, and we're trying to be this accessible luxury brand, it does help as we are competing with these other big luxury guys. Yeah.
Second question is around this. Like, there's a really big gap here, right? Which is the sales. Like, you've just talked about identifying 30 of the best that would link in perfectly with the brand. There's a really interesting. This is a business to business sales piece.
Yeah.
What's the strategy for you guys? Like, how do you approach business to business sales?
Yeah. So Raquel still does this and loves doing it. It's like her hustle that she just loves to just go and get a new retailer that everyone's telling her you can't get.
Yes.
So you can almost just say you won't get them, and then she'll go off and go and get them.
That's the recipe.
Yeah. But so she will really find you really need to find the key decision makers in the companies, and the correct way to do it is to find the key decision makers, send them an email, intro, brand deck, back and forth. but it doesn't always work, even though you really want your product to be there. So what Raquel does is different. She will, in Boots is like a big pharmacy in the UK, and she just jumped on a plane and took 200 samples there and stood out the front of the stores and told the customers to go in and tell the staff that they want this product, right? And then the staff went in and took the samples and went in there and like, what's going on out the front here? There's this girl handing out perfume and got noticed this way.
Wow.
Because you'd imagine all the emails of the people trying to do it the right way. You just got to get in front of these people.
That's cool.
So they didn't accept us initially over in Boots, but 12 months later, almost to the day, they said, hey guys, we're finally ready to bring you guys in. And Raquel had to ask the question, was it because I was out the front of the store? And they're like, yeah, we all talked about it for 3 months after.
Of course.
So things like that will always gain interest. They're a bit risky to do.
Yeah. Can I quickly add something there for the audience, right? Like I think when I hear that, firstly, I'm like, shout out to Raquel, what a beast. I want to talk to Raquel, that's epic.
Yeah.
But what I think is really important about what she's just done in that position is, having an amazing product there, great. But what you've shown, like as a principle of who you are as a brand and a business, is like, oh, these people are unique. They're different. Yeah. So it's like, it's almost like the psychological elements that are added to what she's doing there. Yeah. The reason they're talking about it is like, they're like probably like, can you believe that lady stood at the front of our stores, drummed up that, and then that's enough intrigue because like everybody's inbox is flooded. Everybody's getting the same DMs, blah, 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 blah. There's nothing that's nuanced and different. What she's doing there is, the Seth Godin purple cow. It's like something so uniquely different that they're going to have to talk about in the boardroom. So I love that.
That's she's like that, and there's a story from Estee Lauder, I think, from back in the day. I think it was that era. Did the same thing, walked into one of these stores. It's a well-written story that she walked into one of these stores and everyone kept saying no to her. So she just spilt the perfume all over the floor, right? Just poured it out on the floor. And everyone's like, oh my God, this smells amazing. What is this? Well, it's like, well, this is my brand. I've been talking about trying to get it from you guys for ages.
That's so good.
So that's, we read that story and like, okay, let's just go do stuff like that.
That's sick.
So it does take a long, once you do get the in, it is quite a long process though. When you're talking about big retailers, there's so many, technical setups and all of these, things that happen along the way. When we did it here in Australia with David Jones, Raquel just emailed the buyer and they said, yep. And in 5 days we're in store.
Wow.
Which is unheard of.
Yeah.
So that was what we thought thought it was.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that. But yeah, when we're going to new countries, identify the 30 best guys. If none of them are listening to you, put a billboard up out the front of their office, something like that. Hey, trying to get on to you guys. Do something crazy.
Yeah.
And then, really have to commit when you're launching into retail. You can't just say, okay, I'm here now and forget about it. You have to commit to them and do brand activations and go in store and hype it up. Because the more that they sell, the more they're going to reorder and the more the customers are going to come through, especially if you're in a new country where they don't know you yet, you're going to get significant trust into these retailers.
Retail and e-commerce is really, it's fundamentally different.
Yeah.
Like what can you share for the audiences, trying to make that decision, make that leap? Like what are the positives, the negatives, the challenges, the learnings between the both?
Yeah. So retail, I'll start with e-commerce because most people understand the basics of it. Create a product, make some content, build a website, use some marketing tools, get a customer, send the product. Yeah. Yeah. Try your best to have $20 left over after that $100 episode. Yeah. Try your best, 20% would be good at the end of that. Marketing costs are expensive now, significantly more expensive than they used to be. Now with retail, everybody thinks because it's discounted to the retailer that there's less revenue in it. But you don't need to spend 30% on marketing with a retailer. So the profit margins are similar, right? When you break it down line by line, the profit margins are very similar. And people don't realize that because of how much extra it can cost to run an e-commerce operation. And And then when things get to somewhat scale, what I find is the operating expenses per side starts to go in like this bit of a sway, like seesaw effect. Because when you start to scale e-commerce, your marketing spend goes through the roof.
Yeah.
Just new customer acquisition. But your business, for us, our warehouse operations is not as intense because it's single units going out the door, right? But when our retail side of the business takes off, really the online side is neglected because from the operations perspective, because we have huge orders to fulfill. So the whole operation becomes about retail.
Yes.
And I would say to people listening that you should, if you can, do both.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can, if it makes sense for your product, do both. But when it comes to retail, don't try to bite off more than you can chew. Literally. Because you'll get smoked by these big guys. They don't care too much that they'll take all these products from you. If they can't sell it, they'll make you buy it back, or they'll ask for extra marketing dollars, or they'll discount it, and they'll wreck your brand. So you have to just dip your toes in gently with retail, but it is worth it. I think it's worth it for the brand perspective, and I still believe that there's this customer segment that don't shop online.
For sure.
So like it's almost negligent for online brands to think that people don't shop in store.
And I don't know if there will be a world where it changes. Like maybe I'm fully wrong, but I think the malls and stuff have shifted rightly so to like experiential.
Yeah.
You go to a mall and no longer, like for me, a 2-year-old son, the mall has like a, whatever it's called, some jumping gym playground. Like obviously I'm going there. He's frothing. He's jumping in the ball pit. We're having a great time. So it's like about the experiences and then the byproduct of that is you're walking past things and you're seeing a store. So, to be honest, like sometimes I find it simpler. If you're at a place, like I was at the airport on the weekend, I walked past JBI. I wanted to get the new phone. Yeah. It actually, when you're right there, the transaction is actually simpler than online.
So much.
You know what I mean? Because it's immediate. Yeah. I guess you're tapping into that immediacy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, for us, it's been a great tool for us, a great channel for us, And now that we've made a lot of these errors in Australia by giving the product to everyone and saying yes, we've actually cut 800 of our retailers about 2 months ago. So we've gone from about 800 doors to just David Jones, Sephora, and the airports.
Interesting.
So we've got rid of all of the small guys,
yes,
and all of the guys that challenging to get payments from, and all that side does get complex as well. So our model again is find 10 of the best, go with them, really help them to sell the product. That will prove that in a new market people do like it, which gives you that feedback straight away. And then come through with your e-com after that.
Amazing. Adam, I've got 2 more questions for you. And the first one, I'm going slightly off piece, but I thought, hey, let's have fun. A lot of the time when I have these conversations, a lot of it's around how your decision-making was at a particular point in time. But I think what's really interesting is, when we hear it a 12+ year journey, it's how you think back then to how you think now is fundamentally different. So where I want to go to is give me an example of an existing current challenge you're facing in the business, and then how are you going about problem solving that?
I think right now, financially, we've had challenges this year because of the retail side of the business and all of these doors that we had selling the product.
Yes.
A lot of people just didn't pay us, so huge amounts of financial stress on the business. What I know now about leaning on other mechanisms for finance, for invoice finance, asset finance, all these other levers, I wish I knew them at the start of the year, because as the challenges got harder and harder, if you don't have this understanding of what you can and can't do from a financial aspect, you can get yourself into a bad spot. And I know a lot of Shopify founders and a lot of people would be in similar spots where they've taken short-term finance from Shopify or other places and it's hurt them. And we did that years ago, and that does hurt you to do that. So, but to really simplify the question, it's like what I've learned this year is about really understanding your P&L like it's the back of your hand, and how you can build a business and structure your business profitably by just paying attention to it. I think so many founders, they sell a product, and that happens for so long before they even start to look at what a P&L is. They have their mate's accountant from a friend of a friend. He does tax for them once a year. They got no idea what's going on, which happened to us. We got so big so quick without the right people behind us that untangling it was like, it has been a 12-month process. So, you know, that's been probably my biggest challenge this year, which I've just untangled, you know, after 12 months of like, where do we start? And, you know, moving on from employees and getting rid of these subscriptions and, you know, is this needed, guys? You know, if we do this, what will happen? Well, let's just try and see what happens. I think like most founders, it's such an empowering exercise to just be ruthlessly searching for the truth when it comes to your numbers. And, you know, I've spoken about Toby before. You know, we share the same views on how much easier it is to improve profitability in your business by just attacking the operating expenses versus going after large amounts of revenue.
Because revenue and growth often masks those things, right? Like when you're in those good days and the big growth numbers, and like, you know, we know the feeling, right? It's like the growth's happening. You're like, oh, good, we'll just throw another person here, another person there, and it's like, does that role actually need to exist, or am I throwing a person at a problem that is not? It shouldn't be. Yeah, and I think it's really important for business owners to hear that, because, you know, for myself, the worst part of the job of being a CEO of building a business was having that conversation where you have to fire someone. That was physically the worst part. Luckily, I only had to do it a small number of times. But if you can have that mindset, like during the growth, to go like, does this role need to exist? Yeah. It will protect you the day that you get to scale, that you don't have to do that. You know, like I only recently was doing like a bit of advisory mentoring work for someone, and he's like, you know, let's add a person here. And he was kind of floating this, should I add a person here? And I'm like, let me see the tasks that you're giving to your team, and then I'll help you decide, do you need to add someone? And then we quickly identified like there was just too much workload going to him and not enough empowerment to his team. And so by reshifting the way you're asking questions, the other team will actually figure it out, and then you won't add a person. Yeah. And that's now protected us in the future for one less conversation. When we get time to look back and start tidying the house, we get one less bad conversation. So it's a super important thing for people to hear.
I think, again, like 18 months ago, my thoughts, again, hindsight, like as a business owner, but like 18 months ago, in the peak of the growth, and this is for everyone listening, like we were growing, like everyone was saying yes to Who Was Larger. Yeah. Every brand, every partnership, all of us, and global was happening, and it was all happening. And my mentality at the time, which I look back now on, but my mentality was, we are going to have this problem of this resource problem in 12 months' time. It is coming. And it could take us 3 months to find someone and another 3 months to train them. And then when this does come, we'll have someone ready. And that is the stupidest way to think. Like, now that I think about it, what if that doesn't come? Yeah. Like, is it going to come? Is the thing that you're going to hire for, is it going to be a big problem? Like, we had team running around doing all mixed jobs and mixed things because product was, you know, launching everywhere. We needed certifications and all this stuff. So I needed a product manager, but we just needed a process, you know? And now, like, again, I've been cutting staff significantly. Revenue is not falling, which is indication that these people are not drivers of growth. Productivity is not slowing down. We're growing quicker than we were. So I just had this really bad framed mind that it was like, it could take us so long to find someone, but we would put an ad out, and because Who Was Larger was in Australia, everyone talking about it at the time, like, we would get the best applicants, people from Dior fragrances, people from, and okay, this person will come in, we hire them in a week. It'd be a 1 week process. Now we've got to wait for this person for this 12-month thing to come to them. So I had like such a bad framework to think about it. And now my mindset is, can it be outsourced to agency? So we can learn the process that the agency might know if they're experts at least. Then identify if it's worth bringing in-house after that. And if it is in-house, is it full-time or is it part-time?
Yes.
Like, and it's just you just feel so frustrated at yourself because you didn't think like this back then.
That's the whole beauty about business, right?
Yeah.
We only learn these things, unfortunately. Like, so hopefully we're having these conversations. We can help people identify it earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing you just touched on there is like so critical that it can be done by agency.
Yeah.
I see that as a problem that people do is like straight away, that's another full-time person. And yes, when you're looking at the cost identically, yes, agency is going to cost you more. In theory, but it's not going to scale up and down.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to have like, this customer took an extra 3 months to drop. Okay, we didn't have to pay for that for 3 months. You know, like the beauty is, you know, using a third party, even though it's an inflated cost, is a way to test and measure and then make the decision at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important.
Last question for you. What does it mean to work with your wife on this and, you know, and raising kids at the same time? Like, what does that mean for you?
Yeah. So I don't know what we would be doing, what would we be talking about, how would we be living if we didn't have it? Like, we met, you know, early on, and she's a good sort, and I was just like, I need this, I want this girl, you know, and it was back and forth for a while. And when we got together, it was literally the day that Who Was Elijah started at that Coachella trip. So we've been together from the get-go. You know, the whole relationship has been Who Was Elijah as well. And I just, in the beginning, I always believed that it was her business and that I'm helping her where she needs help in the beginning and still now. But there was never any like ego or anything about whose was what, who was doing what. I just wanted her to succeed so bad as her partner in life and as her friend and as, you know, the father. Like, I just wanted her to succeed and support her so much that she could do whatever she wanted. And then when I came into the business, I would say the first 12 months was actually quite uncomfortable for me because it was still early days in the business. And I didn't really have a place in the business at the time. I didn't come in as like this experienced CEO that knew how to come in and take things over. And I was just sort of like doing what the business needed here and there. I didn't have control. I didn't have like ownership of roles and tasks and things like that. And obviously I just waited my time for my experience to kick through and prove that I could do these things. And then in time, it obviously kicked through and took control over most of the operations of the business. But Raquel and I, like, we love each other so much. Like, it's wild, you know, when I think about it. I just don't know what we would do if we didn't have the business. And she's creative and I like building blocks, right? We always come at it from this husband and wife perspective. If anything's ever intense, we can very quickly just shift, hey, it's not that important. Very quickly do that.
Love that.
And we both have the same goals. Like, we both want to build this great life. We both want to go on this crazy adventure. We both want to bring our kids along for the ride. And when we get to do it together, this is the thing that, like, I struggle when I have some of my friends, they like have obviously separate lives with their wives because they work different jobs, you know, and that's most people. Yeah. I just don't know how we would communicate coming home from work. Hey, how was your day? Good. How was your day? Good. Now what do we talk about? You know? So I just love that we're doing it together. And equally, when we're going through hard times in the business, we have each other right there. So, you know, the last 12 months has been really challenging for me. And she's just been like such a rock and such a support. But the first 5 years was very challenging for her. And we do shift that support mechanism between the two of us unselfishly around in the right times. And that's really important. But yeah, it's been, you know, we're going to go the next 5 years. We're about to move to London with the kids. We're about to go over there and start start the business over there. It's just this big adventure.
That's awesome.
When it all comes said and done at the end of it, you know, we would have done it together. And I think that's really cool.
Mate, that's so cool. I love as you talk about that, your face was lighting up when you said, I love Raquel passionately. Yeah. I can see it in your eyes. Yeah. Adam, what an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, mate. That was great.